So let's go over the Scrum values. So with Scrum, we have sort of this is the entirety of the framework here. We have all of the different ideas and ideologies and the framework itself all put into this nice little graph here, and we're going to be filling it out. Now, something important to realize about Scrum, and you're going to hear this a lot, is Scrum has this idea of a 3-5-3 that originally relates to this right here: 3 artifacts, 5 events, 3 roles. That is Scrum in its essence. Now, we can add onto that 3 pillars and then 5 values. So the 3-5-3 still applies to basically everything there is about Scrum, and you're going to hear that anytime you hear about Scrum is the 3-5-3 idea. Let's go ahead and fill in what we already have covered here. So we have our roles, and those are going to be our product owner, our Scrum Master, and then our dev team. And so this is going to make up the 3 different types of roles you can have in a Scrum team. With artifacts, we're going to take our sprint backlog, our product increment, as well as our product backlog. And we're going to put all of those together to create our artifacts. So we haven't actually discussed this idea of an artifact. Artifact just means a tangible thing that someone could look at or touch or see. All of these are that. You can look at a sprint backlog and move the cards over if you're doing it like sort of on a Kanban board or visualization board. You can see what's going on there. Everyone can see the product increment. They can interact with whatever that product increment is. They can look at it. They can analyze it. They can touch it if it's a piece of software. Same with the product backlog. That's the thing that the product owner is developing to create basically a roadmap for the future. He has complete control of the product backlog, but it's a physical piece that everyone can see. So they're all touching it. They're all feeling it. It's not just the ideas. A product owner is nothing more than a role assigned to a person. It's not like he has something on him that makes him a product owner. The events are all ideas about how things are supposed to be run. The artifacts are things that you can touch and move and play with in the end. So that's what they're artifacts. With our 5 events, we have sprint planning, the daily scrum, the sprint review, the sprint retrospective, and then, of course, overall, the sprint in the middle here. And I'm going to make that one fit by dropping it a little bit. So sprint retrospective right there. So these are our 5 events. Now, let's get into the values. So with our values, what we have is the idea of focus, respect, commitment, courage, and openness. But with our 5 things here, we have the ideas of Scrum. So what are these ideas? What do the values mean? It means that everything we do in Scrum is going to respect all of these values. If anything we did in Scrum broke any of these, they would not be in Scrum. So what are all the 5 values? Well, we have focus. Focus on the work of the sprint and the goals of the team. As a member of a Scrum team, you need to be focused. You need to come into work ready to work, and that's it. When you go home, you don't have to worry about work, but when you're there, you need to focus and do the job and the role that you were assigned. Respect. We need to respect each other to be capable at their jobs and responsibilities. This is important. If you don't respect, for example, your product owner or your Scrum Master or even the stakeholders or the boss or something like that, if you don't respect people to do their jobs, then essentially what you started doing is either 1, openly defying them, or 2, you will try to do their jobs for them. And if you do any of that, the whole thing starts to break down. Remember, this is Scrum. You have to do everything to have Scrum right. You cannot just take this out, take that out, and take that out and be like, oh, we'll be fine. Scrum will work. No, it's a machine that needs to work together and make sure that everyone has respect of the machine itself. If any point you start deleting parts of Scrum, it's going to fall apart. It's going to corrupt. So never delete parts of Scrum. You have to respect it. You have to trust it. So we have our respect. Commitment. Personally commit to achieving the goals of the team. You need to commit that the goals that were set forth, you need to respect the people who made the goals, and you need to focus on accomplishing those goals. You need to commit to those things. Courage. Courage to do the right thing and work on tough problems. If someone in your team isn't doing their job, you need to have the courage to correct them, not to do something passive-aggressive or to take their roles for them or stuff like that. You need to correct the team and make it better in your own right. You also need to do your responsibilities that were set forth. You don't want to take those responsibilities and not do parts of them or try to pass them off to others. The team will break apart if you do that. You need to do the right thing. You need to make sure that everyone else is doing the right thing and have courage to talk about it with maybe your scrum master, try to get things on track, and to generally respect the individuals. If any conflict comes up and you have to be courageous and address that conflict, you need to respect them, that they're not trying to not do their job, or they're not trying to write bad cards or something like that, that they just didn't know and they need a little education. So courage is important, and you also need the courage to work on tough problems. Scrum teams are typically developed to create breaking technology or bleeding edge technology, stuff on the very outskirts, stuff that hasn't been done before. So you need to be ready to come up with new ideas and algorithms and everything to address that. Openness. Be open and transparent about all work and challenges. Scrum, in its essence, is about openness. No more is the team confused about what they're doing because the product owner, or in this situation, like the manager, won't tell the team what's going on. The manager is the only one who talks to the upper brass, and therefore you want to go talk to the manager to see, like, what the vision is, and he's like, no, that doesn't concern you. Just do what I tell you. No more of that. There's no more closed doors. Everyone's confused about what's going on. Everyone's vying for power and political status and holding their cards close to their chest. No, it's all about openness. So with openness, everything is out on the table. If you request something, to see something, unless it's like highly secured, someone should just grant that request. If you want to see the code that another team is writing in the organization, you should be able to see that. There shouldn't be closed doors between everything. You should be open and transparent about all work and challenges to make everyone feel like they're on the same level and to share that common knowledge. So now that we've gone through the values, we can go ahead and add them into our chart. We have focus. We have openness. We have respect, commitment, and courage. So we have filled in our values. Now the last part is an idea that the entire Scrum should work off, and that's this idea of empiricism. So with empiricism, it's all comes down to the basics of this. Knowledge comes from experience. Think scientific ideas. With Scrum, we are not guessing. We are not looking at a team and going, I think that team's doing better than that team over there. We're looking at the hard facts. Too often in the workplace, there's this idea of whoever is working harder is whoever is kissing up to the boss more, because the boss doesn't know. He has a biased view of what's going on. So if one guy is really standoffish and the other one is sort of, really, really a kiss up and does only what the boss says, the boss is probably going to figure out that the guy that is kissing up is the best person here. He's probably, a really hard worker. No, in Scrum, we don't do that. We don't look at the biases and stuff like that. What we do is we look at the data. We find a way to look at the data in the team and figure out the progress from that data. So it's purely what's the knowledge, what's the reality here, and we base our entirety off that reality. We look at what has happened, how do we make it better, and what is the velocity or the progress of the project. No, back to that idea of openness, there's no smoke and mirrors here. It's where are we at? As open and as transparent as possible. And this comes with 3 different pillars. So we have the idea then of transparency, adaptation, and inspection. And these are the 3 pillars of empiricism. So again, I was just talking about knowledge comes from experience. You need transparency to do that. You need to be able to see the stats. You need to be able to figure out if one team member is lagging and they need a little bit of help. You need to figure out what the actual reality is of things, so you need to be transparent. Adaptation. From that knowledge, you need to figure out what's the next step. So what you're going to do to find that is you're going to use inspection. With inspection, you're going to take a look. That the inspection fits very well into the sprint retrospective. You're going to be taking a look and inspecting what needs to be done, what needs to be improved, and how we make the process better with data and data-driven decisions. And then adaptation. You're going to make changes, either with the product itself, the product owner has talked to the stakeholders and they say, you know what, we don't really like the direction it's going. Let's start pivoting in a different direction. We need to be adaptable. Maybe we have to change out an entire technology. Maybe we have to change out how we do our day-to-day programming. Maybe instead of, or our code reviews or something like that. We need to be able to adapt based on the knowledge that we got from inspection, based on the transparency that we got so we could do the inspection. So empiricism is a core tenet of the entire Scrum ideology. So we have transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So with that, we have our 3 core pillars, and they're basically our empiricism pillars, but they're the pillars of Scrum is a lot of times what they're referred to. We have our 5 values, we have our 5 events, our 3 artifacts, and our 3 roles. As you can see, a lot of times people organize these into sort of like making maybe a triangle out of them, or sometimes they'll make like a block, or they'll put circles so they can all be put together. But overall, this is just how you need to see everything. This is Scrum in itself, the essence of Scrum. You have the pillars, the values, the events, the roles, and the artifacts. Now that we have this really strong base, let's get into the actual components of Scrum itself so that you'll understand each one of these a whole lot more.